Hey guys, how you doing? It's Will, the middleman. Hope you're doing all right. Hope you're all doing really well today. So today I have a very special guest on. It's a very good friend of mine called Inga Lamb. I've known Inga for over 10 years. She used to be a client of mine with a program that I used to do called nutritional-balancing. And she was a regular hair tester and her family at some point as well. And so over the years, I got to know Inga. You know, when I do what I do, and sometimes clients stay in contact. It's just the way it is. I have groups in Holland. I have friends in Europe. And Inga's one of those great people because you resonate on a certain frequency with certain people and they never go away. And so they start as a client and then they become friends. And so I'm really grateful for everything that Inga has kind of brought to the table to me over the years. She had her own unique path away from what we were doing, which I was really interested in. I often caught up with her about what she was doing. And so today she resides in Glastonbury. And she's a shaman, but she's going to tell you a bit more about what she does. And so, Inga, hi.
Hi, Will. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me on.
That's fine. So you're in Bruton, Glastonbury at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in Bruton, which is about 20 minutes from Glastonbury. So, yeah, we're in South Somerset.
Okay, and have you always lived there, or did you?
No, I was born in the Orkney Islands, which are right at the top of Scotland. And interestingly enough, I only discovered this a few months or maybe a year or so ago. The house that I lived in as a child was actually right on top of the Ness of Brodgar, which they've now decided is possibly the most important prehistoric kind of temple between life and death, older than Stonehenge. Yeah, I know, it was a bit of a shock. I was like, wow, okay.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, everything you bring to the table, it kind of, I think with all of us, if we actually look at where we were born and signs around how we are now, things we've got to process, I think that for you makes perfect sense. And you've got that kind of like northern past ancestral heritage as part of what you bring to the table now.
Very much so, Will. And it's really interesting because as a child, there are two stone rings in Orkney. One is the Ring of Brodgar and the other is the Standing Stones of Stennis. And they both are actually, they now realise, connected to the Ness of Brodgar because they only unearthed the Ness of Brodgar about 10 years ago. It's a really new sort of archaeological dig. And I always loved the Ring of Brodgar. I had no idea why, but it always resonated deeply with me. And I did a shamanic journey shortly after I trained. And I found myself in the center of the Ring of Brodgar. And I was told that this was all to do with my lineage and, you know, and my path as a shaman. So yeah, you're right. It was all there all along.
Well, if you look at your place of birth, if you look at your name, all these things come together, and if you are on a strong spiritual path, these things are really worth looking into. So obviously you were a client of mine at some point. I think it's going back into maybe 2013 or 2012.
Yeah.
So I often talk about you as a client because when people reach a certain plateau with what we do and they still feel there's something laying beneath, I will talk about your story. And so obviously you're into nutrition and lots of supplements because obviously you're worried about your health and that sort of thing. At what point did you realise there was more to what you were doing?
So my explosion, if you like, began in 2008. And by the time I met you in 2000, actually it was 2012, I remember very clearly sitting at my table and emailing you. I arrived at the point where I desperately needed help. And then, you know, the nutritional program was amazing because it actually really changed my life. But I think what that did was it gave me the physical and emotional strength to deal with what was actually happening, which was a spiritual awakening. And I had I thought I was dying. I thought I was, you know, having nervous breakdowns. I certainly it never occurred to me it was a spiritual awakening, because it just wasn't in my existence, wasn't in my world. So I think probably around about the exact same time, it was around about 2011, 2012, I started doing Qigong. I remember I bought a CD, going back all those years, and sat on my bedroom floor with the lights off, and it was Himalayan monks chanting, and I would sit there and I would just shake, and I had no idea what was going on, but I just went with it. And that, and then, you know, working with you, it sort of just began to open gradually. And then in 2013, I was on the phone with my old dancing teacher, and she's kind of like my guru. She's this incredible woman. She was my ballet teacher when I was a child, but she's now a Qigong master and a Tai Chi master. And she said to me, you need to read this book about a shaman. I'd never heard of a shaman before. I had no clue. And I Googled it, and it came up with soul retrieval, which is, you know, one of the kind of the standard things that a shaman will do. And I read everything about why one might need a soul retrieval. And I was like, that's me. So I went and found a shaman, and that was where my journey really started to open up, and yeah, and really began.
So what did that involve? I suppose a shaman, it's a word used in our society, and it's banded around quite a lot. Not people know. Some people, you know, they've heard of a shaman. What actually is a shaman?
So a shaman, the word excuse me, the word shaman actually comes from Siberia, and the word Shah in the ancient language, possibly even now, means one who walks between the worlds, and then man, obviously, you know, meaning the human aspect. Essentially, a shaman is someone who always works with guides. So one of the first aspects of becoming a shaman or a shamanic healer is you discover your spirit guides. We all have spirit guides, but generally we're not aware of them because it's not in our culture, we're not taught. So the first thing is we begin to discover our spirit guides, and through that we are then able to journey into the other realms. We never ever go without our spirit guides, because
so with that, is it you're doing that for other people?
You start doing it for yourself. You do. So the training is you must do your own journey. So the name for shamans generally are the wounded healer, which means that you have to do absolutely categorically the work yourself first in order to be prepared to do it for others. So there's a sequence of journeys.
I think a lot of healers should try that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot out there that haven't done that first. And so it's very, very valuable. And so you talk about that, you talk about the realms. What exact realms are you talking about? You're talking about astral realms, you're talking about etheric realms, or are you talking about realms that I've not mentioned? Or
it's just it's wherever we need to go. So I suppose the thing about being a shaman is you are a vessel. Essentially, you're a vessel for the higher self, the work of the other person that you're working, you know, on behalf of. So half the time I have no idea where I am, and it really doesn't matter, because I'm going somewhere for a specific reason. So what I do is I set the intention for the work for the client. So it could be to retrieve a soul part, it could be to you know, resolve ancestral patterns, it could be to find a past life. Even when I set the intention, doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen, because actually it's none of my business what happens.
Absolutely. So I guess you've got to watch out for the element of control of what you want to happen compared to what's actually going to happen.
That's fundamental, Will, and it's something that, you know, I really grappled with in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, the ego is saying, no, but you've told this person that they've come for a soul retrieval and therefore they must have a soul retrieval. And I learned very quickly that if I was going to do this work, that I had to literally leave Inga here, and this human body was the one that was doing the work, with the capacity to speak a language and therefore take the information which doesn't come as language into language, which I could then give back to them so as they can understand what I've experienced.
So with that, is there any dangers of you doing that?
It is not an easy journey at all, ever. I mean, I
ask this is because I've as you know, I do hair analysis worldwide, but as a local practitioner, I did energy healing for a while. I did bioresonance. I was doing scalar therapy, which are both amazing. I mean, I love them. But then one time I did a client and I absorbed her energy.
I remember that. That
scared the life out of me. And it was literally, she imprinted on me. And it was actually a distance healing. But I felt that I was vulnerable that day. I felt tired. I was in the wrong room. I had other things going on. But what you've just said about control, about you being there, it was Will going, right, I really want her to be better. I really want her to be better. And like this affirmation, looking at her photo going, please be happy, completely throw myself in. And this is a warning to people out there as well that do this sort of thing, because if you're not putting up what you need to, and your intention isn't right, and you're feeling a bit drained that day, or whatever it may be, and you intuitively think, I shouldn't be doing this, there is a danger to energy healing. It isn't a straight road. I found that out the hard way. So obviously I think about what you do and I'm like, you know, you have to know what you're doing with this. You can't just pick it up and just start to do it.
No, and I think that's a really, really good point, because the thing about the shamanic work is it's incredibly ritualistic. So, you know, I will use, I mean, as I move forward, I don't need so many rituals because I'm more protected than I was, say, at the beginning. But in the beginning, I would have crystals everywhere and, you know, and feathers everywhere. And generally I do that because also it sets the scene and it helps the client to feel into the environment. But if I meet somebody and they're in desperate need and, you know, I don't know, we're in a cafe or something, I can work without the ritualistic element, but I never work without my guides. And so I'm always with the protection. And I think, but the even more important thing I think that you said there, Will, is that, you know, you got a great big hammer over the head, essentially, because your ego is involved. And I think that's the real key, is it's none of our business.
No.
Whether the person, you know, it's entirely up to them. We are literally just a vessel to serve their higher self. And so it's none of our business whether they, you know, whether they're happy or whether they heal, or whether their higher self must make that decision. And I think that's a really important thing.
What do you think? I mean, I've trained in lots of different modalities, Reiki being one of them. And I asked the practitioner, the teacher that day, I said, does it matter if you're really tired and unwell? Should you be giving Reiki to someone else? And she was saying, it doesn't matter, because if you set the right intention, that sort of thing, it'll be energy just flowing through you from the divine. But at the same time, I thought to myself, but surely wouldn't our shields be weaker if we're unwell? Can't we pass some of our energy unintentionally onto that person?
That's a really good point. I mean, potentially, yes. I think it all, you know, what you say, I think it all comes down to honoring yourself as a practitioner. I think that's the real key. Knowing when we are, because it's all about being 100% responsible for what we're doing and 100% honest with ourselves and honest with our clients as well. So I think if for whatever reason you don't feel quite right about doing the work, and I say this to my clients as well, I'm like, you know, you need to cancel last minute. it's
Yeah.
absolutely fine, because the work will happen when it's supposed to happen. And again, if our egos are busy saying, yes, but you've arranged it and therefore you've got to do it, you know, we're going to get a hammer over the head from the universe. You know?
That's such a good point. I have it with my clients with the minimal method stuff, with hair analysis. Sometimes I want to give my all for a consultation, and sometimes I'll just think today's not the day to do that. My intuition won't be as strong, and as much as it isn't nice to cancel, sometimes you just say, look, are you okay? Most people are beautiful, most people are nice, they really, really are. And if you get your clients who's like, it's difficult, okay, let's do this, and let's just, you know, protect yourself a bit more and just try. It's usually fine, but I just think use your intuition if you're a practitioner. And if you come across something, I've had several energy healing teachers, and one said, you know, if you come across something with a person's energy field that you don't feel comfortable with, just walk away.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you walk out of that room. Give them the money back, walk away, and just say, I'm really sorry, I don't feel very well. It's like, we've got to be, just because we do what we do, it doesn't mean that you have to ignore all of the signs. It's like, you know, it's actually can be quite a tricky thing that we do, right? And so you've got to really be on point. And, you know, it's you've got to understand it's your health. It's this is your vessel that you've got to carry around. You've got to protect that. This is really about self-love as well. And I felt that day, you know, this is going back a few years now, I didn't have as much self-love as I have now.
Yeah. And I think it's really important, you know, what you say as well about the fact that, you know, it's not just about protecting ourselves, it's also about knowing when to step away, because, you know, if you meet a client who is, you know, on some level is going to push your energy somewhere, then I think it's okay to say no. It's actually important, because from my perspective, what's happened is that person has come into your life to give you a test, you know. Have you actually learned the lesson?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you still going to do the same old thing again? You know, so it's also understanding the really big picture, that everyone comes into our lives to give us something, you know, on some level. And I think, you know, with clients like that, I had a situation, and it was definitely a test about something that was huge in my life, a massive trauma that I'd experienced. And I was going, yeah, I'm so over that now. I'm so okay. And then I got this test, and it triggered me so much, and I had to really fight through. So I think it's really important to honor that as well. You know, it's all about honoring our truth, honoring our truth, honoring our truth, honoring our truth. That's what it's all about.
You're so right. I mean, I think you and I had a conversation last week. I've been doing I've been on a spiritual truth seeker for you know, since 2009. Actually, before my own spiritual awakening started 2009. I don't know what the hell was going on. I thought I had neurologically something wrong with me. I was like, I've got like systemic parasites or something, because my body's buzzing. The body's literally buzzing, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm like getting tension, and I'm literally falling apart, and I'm like, it's not good. And you know, but back then I look at like energetically the kind of amount that I've had. It's such a long time ago, it seems like, because it's such a long journey, and I've tried so much stuff to try and improve. You know, physically it was done. I always felt like what I do with the minimal method and hair analysis, I'd really improve myself. I look so different physically. I'd walk into a swimming pool with a pair of shorts and go, look, I look amazing. No, but that was the physical stuff. But I knew there's something still spiritually lurking underneath. Yeah. You know, and it's taken me such a long time to realise certain things that are good to clear my energy field and my traumas and this sort of thing. As you know, I've used the forest and grounding to really bring those kind of traumas up. But recently I've come across an exercise which has really, it's just found me. It's time. And now these things are releasing kind of effortlessly. And so I would just say to people, it's a journey, and sometimes you've got to find what's right for you. Just because we're saying certain modalities, it doesn't mean it's right for you. Use your own, there will be something there telling you yes or no, you know. So with your clients, what would you say the changes are that you would notice in them over time? And so let's just say someone has a big release. someone processes a big trauma in their life, what is the feeling? Because sometimes people are like, what am I looking for when something's been released?
It really, really is infinite. There are infinite possibilities. I mean, I have people who are just ecstatic, you know, oh, and I love my life. And I had one, you know, I've had clients who have left and felt immensely depressed. I mean, really, really. So I always check in with a client after the session a few hours later, because I have no idea what they're going to feel like. That's again part of the letting go process. But
it's worth saying now, if you do go and see someone like yourself, that it's not a bad thing if they do start getting depression after they see you.
That's really important, Will. But it's also really, really important that you stay connected with the practitioner, because it's not a journey that you should or really want to take alone. You know, even if it's just, you know, the odd text every now and then. I'm not suggesting every 5 minutes, but it's just important that if you do experience things like that, because what it may mean is that there's been a massive shift, for example, of stuck trauma, which because it was so big hasn't actually been able to come out. It's just moved, which means that if you then don't come back for a secondary session, it will, you know, it'll sit there making it awful, and then it'll just sink back in again. That, for example, you know, I mean, that's session won't.
I didn't even know that. And it's like so valuable to know that, you know, it's a process, and once you start, once you unlock something, it's like a big onion. Layer and the next layer and the next layer. So talking about that, what sort of layers are you dealing with? Because obviously you've got all of your own stuff that you've been in with your own life, like your big brother stole your ice cream when you were 5, you know, and then smack you in the mouth just for the privilege of it. You know, it's that sort of thing. And your mum turned around and then blamed you, not him. You know, all those. Believe me, if my big brother's watching, you know what I'm talking about. So. What other than your own traumas and experiences, what else is laying beneath?
So you have I mean, we all come in, I call them blueprints because it's just easy to understand. We all come in with soul blueprints, which are the lessons that our soul wants to learn in this lifetime. And we also come in with, so, you know, Einstein amazingly discovered that we're all energy. So it's now, you know, it's not something, you know, woo-woo, it's a fact. We are all essentially energetic beings. We're basically energy. We just appear to be solid because we're on a very low vibration down here. So the fact that we're all energetic beings means that we, you know, we are affected by energy. So I'm sorry, I've completely forgotten what you asked me. That was really random. I'm sorry.
Do you know what? It doesn't matter, because it's.
I was like, I knew it was like Einstein, and then I wandered off thinking about Einstein.
Do you know what? There's so many calls, right? There's so many calls where I do this, because I start off with an original point, and I'm like, and I just go off and off and off and off and off, and I'm on this like 10 or 12 points later, and I'm like, I do really well to pull it back sometimes, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh no, I remember, I got it. Okay, so I was talking about the blueprints. Yeah, so basically we're all energy, and we come in with our own soul's journey, but we also come in with the blueprints, the previous energetic form blueprints, which people call past lives, but sometimes I think that sounds a bit woo-woo, so it's easier to think of them as blueprints, previous energetic blueprints. And then we have ancestral blueprints. So, you know, epigenetics, for example, if we want to look at it from a more scientific perspective, now knows that, for example, a trauma that happened 7 generations previously, which was never dealt with, will feed into the, you know, into the genetic makeup of the next generations. I mean, personally, I believe it could be even longer, but science at the moment has established, I think it's seven generations. So you come in with ancestral blueprints, you come in with past life blueprints, and you come in with your own blueprints. It's quite a lot of stuff.
And so how would, let's just say you release a big blueprint, what can someone expect physically and emotionally after that?
That generally what people feel is they feel a sense of relief and release, but it tends to be very incremental. So for example, I'll do a session, and in my experience, it's usually the sessions where people don't necessarily experience the huge shift straight away, and they go away saying, well, yeah, okay, but then the work takes over. Often when people have the big eureka experience, they're so interested in that they maybe miss a little bit of the work that goes on. So usually the work happens over the period of about a week.
So what I find really interesting with clients is that people forget what they feel like.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
So luckily, when I start with clients, I get them to tick out a symptom list. And a year later, I might get an information form back for a new hair analysis retest, and I'll say, how are you? Oh, I'm still the same.
Okay.
And I'll look back at the initial symptom list, and there were 50 things ticked. I now look at it and there were 10 ticked.
Yeah. And
so I'd go back and say, and sometimes it's their emotional state, because they're focusing on something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, some people not at all, but you have some people that they're in that mentality that nothing's ever right. And I go, well, what about the bad stomach? What about the sleep problems? Oh no, they're fine now.
Yeah.
But now I've got heartburn, but now I've got like foot pain, and I was like, okay, this is the onion we keep talking about, peeling it back, and the new things coming up.
Yeah.
You know. Also, I think with emotional work and what you do, also the changes can be really subtle. And so feeling of just a little more freedom in the body, a little more space, not so many, like when you get worried, not so much of a gripping stomach. Because life is life, right? And on these awakening paths, it doesn't mean that we don't pay the bills. It doesn't mean we don't look after our children. It doesn't mean we don't have arguments with people. It just means that inside there's a lot more freedom.
Absolutely. But I think that's a brilliant idea, actually, what you're saying about doing this kind of checklist, because I see clients and I can see the most extraordinary changes. And often for me, it's in the eyes, or it's just in the way that they're, straight after a session, it's the eyes. Usually they look totally different. And I can also gauge as to whether we can end the session. Sometimes I have to go over because, if there's been a particularly, their eyes are like, okay, no, we're not ending just yet, but I think that's a really good point, because people do forget how they actually felt.
They really, really do. And I've had it many, many times, and even in myself. And I'm like, how different am I feeling after I've done this emotional work? And what I find these days is I'll go through weeks sometimes of processing. Then I'll have a few days where I'm like, nothing matters.
Yeah.
I feel amazing.
Yeah.
I actually feel at peace.
Yeah.
Then the next time up, and I'll get the next trigger and I'll do it all again. But it's not, it's subtle, but it's not difficult. And I think a great friend of mine, James Davies, was a client of mine, a superstar client of mine, was with me for 12 years. He went from not being able to leave the house to not being able to work, and terrible physical problems. Now the guy is full-time working and so connected to spirituality. And he's almost like a bit like you, turned the tables of where he now talks to me about spirituality and really gives me new insights. And I sometimes joke with him, it's like hanging around you, like hanging around with Jesus. He's so present.
Yeah.
But you like a warm fire being next to him. He's just so present, but he's done a lot of emotional work. And but you know, and he knows that sometimes when you open up these things, it can take months to process them. And that ain't fun. And you think you're going mad, and you think that this is where it's so important to have support.
Absolutely.
People know exactly what they're doing, exactly how the process works, and to hold your hand, and go, look, and don't get me wrong, as practitioners, we have other clients, we have families and that sort of thing. We can't be doing it every 10 minutes, but it's absolutely fine to get a message now and again going, am I okay? Yeah, you're all right.
Yeah.
It's perfectly normal. You're doing really well.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I think think you and I are the same. Also, we're quite motivating people. I like to keep myself positive for clients, because that's what we're there for, to go look. But then not naively positive.
No.
If something's wrong, I will go, okay, well, fine, maybe stop doing that then, and maybe that will improve. My intuition will sometimes tell me with the club, when you're doing too much of that, to stop it.
Yeah.
No, this is good. Or maybe just slow down for a little bit what you're doing.
Yeah.
Restabilize and then get back on the horse.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I loved about working with you, Will, was that you always, you know, because my anxiety was, when we first met, was through the absolute roof, you know. And interestingly enough, what I've realized is that was a trauma which came from childhood, which was that I believed that there was something wrong with me because I was always totally different from everybody else. But that's another story. But I loved working with you because you always focused on the positives. And that actually was what I needed so much in my life, was for somebody to say, yeah, you're doing great. Yes, you're amazing. Yes, you're fantastic. Instead of, well, you did that wrong, didn't you? You know?
Well, at the end of the day, I was hanging around with a bunch of guys who were saying, if you don't drink 1.77 litres of carrot juice a week, then there's going to be a problem. That's who I kind of trained with initially, and I'm like, no, I can't do this. You know, the wisdom I gained from the Americans was invaluable, but they do things a certain way. They have a perfectionist mentality, and they're very driven. If you're going to do something, do it right and do more of it. That's what the Americans are all about. And I just, in the end, I think I do love the European mentality for life. Oh,
yeah.
Can't be asked.
The Italian, just lovely to do nothing.
It's like, you know what? It's just like, but what makes people ill in the first place is perfectionism.
Absolutely, it's the stress, isn't it? I mean, this is what I was like. I mean, I was, you know, absolutely obsessive, and I'd be like you. I've been through every conceivable possible, you know, practice, and it was, you know, I mean, I remember people laughing at me because I wouldn't leave the house because now I have my green smoothie, and then I've got to do 20 minutes of yoga and blah blah, you know, and it actually makes you miserable. And I think this is what's so important. You know, you're a human being. You've come here to have the human experience. That means the whole lot, the whole shebang, however that rocks up in your life. It's about not judging yourself and not judging others and not judging what comes into your life as well, because everything actually is a gift. There's a beautiful Zen story about the farmer, and it's something along the lines of, you know, the farmer goes out and buys a horse, and the horse brings the horse home, and the next day the horse runs away, and all his neighbors come over and say, well, that's just terrible. And the farmer says, well, maybe yes, maybe no. And the next day the horse comes back, brings a whole load of wild horses with him, and the neighbors come over and say, well, that's fantastic. And the farmer says, well, maybe yes, maybe no. And it goes on like this. And the point about it is that we never know whether something is good or whether it's bad, and I say good or bad in inverted commas, you know, so we should just accept everything that life has to offer and not worry about it all having to be absolutely, you know, T's crossed and I's dotted. And I loved that about your programs. I really did.
This is life itself. And if you can process enough to start realizing that things come at you as a test, as we touched on earlier, after you've processed enough, you know, I think then you'll start opening your eyes to actually literally everything that happens to you is going to be a reaction. But there's a great author called Richard Rohr, who was is an ex-Catholic monk, and he talks about when you hit a certain stage of awakening, you daren't not be present with that emotion. Because if you're not present with that emotion, it gets locked away to be processed later. And they dare not be present with life circumstances and what it brings up within them, because it's an opportunity to process that emotion. And
that's really true.
Certainly is the space I'm in at the moment. Like if something triggers me, I'll go off and I'll process it and I go, come on in, out you come. And I actually start to enjoy it. I'm actually like, no, I actually want to go into those spaces where things like, you know, push me, terrify me, because I want to see what it is. I want to see lies underneath it. But
yeah.
I know we're a bit limited on time today, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you just a general question, because obviously there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. And I would say as an individual, I've got a lot of friends and I've got a lot of colleagues who have very varying differences in what is actually happening with the world, that sort of thing. I will never. I believe in free speech, and I believe in everyone having their opinion, no matter where they've got it from, so we can talk about it. You know, and what's going on in the world at the moment seems very extreme. It seems very oppressive. It seems very kind of going a certain way, and a lot of people are worried. And I'm never gonna deny what that person is saying. Listen, like you, I expect I'm ready for anything in the future. I just think anything could happen, and it's like, you know, for all I know, Jesus could fly down the cloud tomorrow and like go, "Hey, I'm here, great." I was like, "Woo!" And then other people go, "Yes, but that's a hologram." you can't trust them because that's not Jesus. Or then there might be a spaceship that flies out of the sky that goes, "Hey, we're here." It's like, great, but it's a hologram. Don't trust them. And so it's like, but then, you know, there's a lot going on with the weather at the moment. People think it's a bit strange, all this sort of thing. Even if it is, it's like, to me, I'm kind of getting to that point now. It's like, it doesn't really matter.
No. So I think it's so important. You know, we don't realize how powerful our language is. And there's a beautiful thing that someone once told me, and that is that spelling, you think about spelling, you know, as you write a word, is spell casting. So when we speak, we are actually speaking the truth, but we're not aware of it. So if you think about the word matter from a scientific point of view, it means dense energy, which can be seen as something physical. But the truth of the matter is, as Einstein discovered, we're not actually matter. We are energy with a very small amount of matter, which makes us appear. So when people say it doesn't matter, what they're really saying is it doesn't really exist. It's just energy that appears as an illusion. So when people talk about the world being an illusion, that's essentially what they're saying. Am I making sense?
I agree, absolutely, yeah.
So from my perspective, we are going through a huge evolution. It's not revolution, it's evolution. And I think it is such an incredibly powerful moment, unprecedented in our human experience, because people are really waking up. You know, there are lots and lots of people, and it's just very gradual. And, you know, I say to all my clients, because you've come to see me, you are one of the pioneers. You are one of the people who has chosen to wake up. And it's tough. It's a really tough journey. But every time someone wakes up, the world heals a little bit more. So I don't buy into this idea of them and us, or, you know, bad and good. As far as I see it, we are in a period of evolution, and this evolution is the awakening of the human race, which is an extraordinarily beautiful thing. And as we awaken, each one of us shines light, and as we shine our light, we offer the light to others, whether they choose to take it or not, none of my business. But I can offer it, I can share it. It's like you said with your friend, it's like being next to a lovely cuddly hot water bottle, because he's done all this work. He's like this gorgeous presence, and he then offers that to everyone he comes into contact with. So that's how I see the world.
I mean, I see different people have different roles here as well. And so if someone's finding out the weather's manipulated by the powers that be, and maybe it is, then maybe that's their role. They bring it in and they go like, right. And so to me, it's almost like there's just really one relationship is between you and whatever you want to call it, God, the divine source, home. It's just that. And so whatever we're going through at the moment, if we are going through a revelations type period, it's because we're moving to a new period. And that period is our energy fields getting stronger, our connection to God getting stronger, and releasing whatever we need to. And every time we take responsibility for our own emotions, we're taking it from the planet stress. It's almost stressful for the environment. So every time we take responsible for our ancestral line, every time we put for our pain, we are taking making the Earth's energy field a little bit stronger, because it's like, well, I don't have to deal with that. So if you're into your climate stuff and that sort of thing, into the planet and that sort of thing, I know a lot of people think that climate change is a scam. It doesn't really matter. It's almost like, listen, if you, whatever you believe, this work, what we're talking about, is going to benefit you, whatever. Yeah, whatever. It's almost like, so, and also that there's a stage, I believe, one of my favorite authors is Mary Schutan, and she talks about stages of classic spiritual awakenings. And she said one of the stages is society conditioning. It's a difficult stage to get out with, and that is the hatred of the government, conspiracy theories coming out your ears, walking around in fear, not really walking around confused, thinking, God, this place is awful. That's been around thousands of years.
It really has, ever since we created, you know, well, ever since we created hierarchies, that's existed. But I just feel that, from my perspective, all these things are red herrings, because the only person that we really need to be concerned with, is ourselves. Because when we take total responsibility for what we're doing, who we are, what we think, what we say, and that is actually the hardest thing in the world to do. But when we do that, we change the world. When we're worrying about what everybody else is doing, you know, we're not taking responsibility for ourselves, and therefore we're not actually changing the world. Will, I have to go. I'm so sorry.
If someone wants to get hold of you, how would they do it, and what are you doing quickly at the moment?
Okay, so we've just opened the healing collection, which is we're a group of practitioners, and we're doing, well, Willa's going to be joining us. We're doing online video courses which can be bought. We're running retreats, which will be happening next year. We also offer individual sessions with practitioners. We're a group of practitioners who've come together because not one size fits all. So not everyone's going to want to see a shaman. Not everyone's going to want to do their minerals. You know, so we've got different people. We've got Qigong practitioner. We've got a quantum parenting practitioner. We have sound bars, hypnotherapy, NLP, you name it.
So and guys, if you're ever in and around Glastonbury or Bristol, that sort of area, I'm going to leave Inga's link below for the healing collection as well. And so, Inga, thank you so much for your time. It's been very enlightening as usual. And I'm sure we'll catch up soon personally, but just want to say a massive thank you, and we'll hopefully see you again.
Thank you. It was so lovely to see you. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.